Okay, got it.
Okay, salam alaikum everyone. Hope you guys are doing well today. Um, Hello everyone on Zoom. Hope you guys are doing well too. Thank you guys so much for coming to our first professional development workshop with SANC. Today's session is going to be on resume building 101. So we'll be talking through the basic building blocks of your resume, how to stand out, how to make yourself unique, but also how to get that interview or get that job that you're looking for. My name is Manar Harran. Nice to meet you all. And I am the Human Development Officer here with SANC, so I'm specialized in the professional development of our community. All right, here we go. So this is our agenda for the day. I'm going to start off with a brief introduction of myself, my background, my credentials, what I do as a profession. We're going to talk through what a resume is. We're also going to talk through the significance of a resume, so why it's important. We're going to talk through design and first impression of a resume. That different components of a resume, so how to overall build it and structure it. Then we're going to have a Q&A. So if you guys have any specific questions, maybe about your personal resume or things that you've run into, situations in the past, maybe through interviewing, and you wanted to clarify some things on your resume, that'll be the time for the Q&A. So any question is a good question. About that, we're going to open up the floor. So if you all maybe have a copy of your resume on your phone or on your laptop or your iPod or iPad, and you guys want me to look at it and edit it and offer some recommendations or suggestions or anything like that, then the time is yours. It'll be like personalized support for those who are here in person. For those who are joining us through Zoom, starting next weekend, I will offer my bi-weekly office hours, which is an open time frame for us to connect personally on your resume. So if you guys need support with editing it, applying for a job, you need a second opinion, you need interview preparation or anything like that, on Saturdays, I'll have my open office hours. More details to come. All right, so introduction. I am Manar Harran. I'm originally from Sacramento, California. I was born and raised there. I've been in the Bay Area for the past 3 years. My education, I studied at the University of California, Merced. I got a bachelor's in business management and economics. Currently, I work as a technical recruiter at Meta. So all I do is read resumes every single day. I talk to candidates every single day, different levels of resumes, high level, senior level, entry level. So that's all I do every day, which is why we're here for this resume workshop. Meta used to be called Facebook, so that's what the company is. The new name is the new brand is Meta. So if y'all haven't heard the new name, it's Meta. And then here at SANC, I am the Human Development Officer, so we'll be doing a lot of these workshops throughout the year. All right, so what is a resume? I want you all to think of your resume as a one-page reflection of yourself. It represents you when you're not there. So when you submit an application, all they see is your resume. They don't have access to your headshot unless they go on LinkedIn and can make their own assumptions. But you want to make sure that this document is the best representation of yourself, because this is what's going to help further your career once you submit an application to a job. So these are different components of a resume. So it's a formal document, and it provides an overview of your professional qualifications, or if you're in school still, your experience in undergrad, whether it's the clubs and involvements that you're in, any internships, volunteer experience can count as experience. You can include your relevant work experience, skills, education, or any notable accomplishments that you'd like to highlight. The purpose of a resume is to simply introduce yourself to your employers, present those qualifications, and secure an interview. So that's like the overall goal is to get an interview. And then the goal is to showcase all these different things in a standardized format that's easy to read for recruiters. Because as a recruiter, we look at so many resumes throughout the day, throughout the week, so you want to make sure that your document stands out to what we're looking for. This question is for the audience. Very simple. Why do you think a resume is, like, what's the significance of it? Why do y'all think it's important? I'll give you guys a second to think about it.
Okay. Like you answered it because you can't. They don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
For the first impression.
Yes.
It's important to people, so look good on paper.
Exactly. Good answer. Anyone else want to add to that? We're good? Okay. Good answer. But yeah, you're exactly right. So these are 5 different reasons why a resume is important. The first one is it's your first official interaction with a company. The second one is it also lets us know how to get in contact with you. So you need to make sure on all resumes you need to have updated email, updated phone number, updated location or address. The third thing is that it highlights your biggest accomplishments and your skill set. So you really want to make sure that you're highlighting all the things that you've accomplished within the past year, 5 years, so on and so forth. And then by reviewing your resume on the recruiter's end, we get to determine what your skill sets are a good fit for. So you want to highlight what it is that you specialize in, whether it's a specific software that you know how to use or a specific internship that you held. You want to make sure that you highlight that because that's what you want to get into in the future. And then the last thing to keep note of is the resume screen is the first step of the entire interview process. So that's your first introduction, like you mentioned. So this question is, how long do recruiters spend on average reading one resume? Any guesses from the audience of how long you think recruiters spend, whether it's 2 minutes, 2 minutes? Any other guesses? Going once, going twice? A minute and a half, okay. Anyone else? I need a third guess. 5 minutes? Good answer. So, believe it or not, according to Time magazine, recruiters spend an average of 6 seconds reading your resume. We have different systems in place that highlight keywords that we're looking for, and in 6 seconds we can determine whether or not we're going to move forward with the candidate. So you want to make sure that in those 6 seconds, the content that you list on your resume is something memorable, something that'll stand out, and something that'll get noticed. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, what do I need to do in order to get noticed through that resume? So how can you make those 6 seconds count? And we'll go ahead and talk through that. The way that you'll make the 6 seconds count is through the design of your resume, the entire format. You want to make sure it's easy on the eye. You want to make sure the keywords that you highlight from the description of your experience aligns with like the qualifications on the job description. So those are the keywords that we highlight. And then design and first impression is how you stand out in the 6 seconds. When it comes to design, you want to make sure the first thing is that your resume is a page. Sometimes folks will have a lot of experience to where it'll go over 2 pages, sometimes 3 pages, but in 6 seconds, it's a little difficult to sort through those 2 to 3 pages. So we always ask that you prioritize the experience that's most relevant to the job that you're applying to and condense it to 1 page. The second thing is that we want to make sure that the description that you have on your resume has action words in the description. So for example, let's say you organized a meeting, or you executed something, or you delegated tasks. You want to make sure that those first words of each description is action words, so we know this is exactly what you did in that specific role. The third thing is your impact is very important on a resume. So you can have all this experience, but what impact did you make? How many people did you touch? Or how many folks did you help elevate? Or whatever that may look like. So what's measurable? What's quantifiable? If you're measuring things through, for example, KPIs, key performance indicators, how did you measure the success of what it is that you did in that specific role? So let's say, for example, you work in education and you work with 20 students a day. Something to measure is I worked with 20 students, that's like the number of how you measure the impact to do X, Y, and Z. So just make sure you guys have the action word and then also a number or a KPI that highlights that. Another thing is your resume should always be in chronological order. So the first few jobs and roles that you have on the top should either be what you're currently doing, what you're currently involved in, and then after that, you're kind of going back in time through that. And so the last role should be kind of the first few experiences you've held, and then the more recent ones should be what you're doing now. And then the last thing to highlight is your resume should always be intentional. The job search is very, very scary and can take a long time for a lot of folks. So you want to make sure that the resume that you submit for each individual job is tailored for that specific role. You have to move forward with intent. So if you have one resume, for example, and you're interested in going to 3 different fields, that one resume is not going to serve the purpose that it needs in those 3 fields. So you should always edit your resume based off the role that you are pursuing. That's the intent that we're looking for. Any questions so far? We're good? Okay.
Question.
Yes.
How long do you take?
On my to read resumes?
Yeah.
You know, it depends. I would say the 6 seconds is pretty accurate. Yeah.
Wow.
And then if I see what I like, then I'll take more time to dive through the resume. Yeah. But yeah, these are what should go on your resume, components of your resume. Contact information is important. They need to know your name, how to get a hold of you, where you're located. Location used to be very important before COVID because a lot of roles weren't remote, but now that a lot of companies are transitioning to remote work, it's not as important because a lot of folks are remote. Something else that should be highlighted is your education. So any credentials that you have or any relevant courses that you've taken that can help further your application process to the role that you're pursuing. After that is any skills. So if you do have technical skills, any coding languages that you have or any courses that you've taken that use those coding languages, you go ahead and list that on your resume. If you don't have a technical background, I don't have a technical background, for the skills, you can put a balance of hard skills and soft skills that you have. So for me, I like to put things like public speaking, organizing, communicating, and those are like the soft skills that I highlight that I have on my resume. Experience is a good chunk of your resume. It's probably like 80% of the resume. You highlight your work experience, you highlight any research opportunities that you've held, any internships that you've held, and if you're still an undergrad, volunteer experience can go on there too, clubs and organizations that you're in, because that's the experience that you have. And then lastly is projects. So if you're supporting any project and that's relevant towards the job that you're pursuing, then go ahead and list the projects, list your specific role and what you did. So the impact that you're going to be, or the impact that you measured in that specific project.
Excuse me. You say what I see, what I like. How I know you like something like I have a master degree in either documentation.
Mm-hmm.
How I know you like this one to put this one in the room?
Very good question. So my biggest advice is whenever you're looking forward to a job, whether it's a job that you're, or like an industry that you're already in or something that you want to transition into, pull up the job posting of the role and it'll have a breakdown of qualifications, skills, what they're looking for, and then pull up your resume. And make sure that your resume, like the way you describe your experience, is aligned with what's listed on the job posting for qualifications. So if they're looking for somebody who has experience, for example, maybe like launching a website, and you have experience like building a website or on social media, then those keywords like launching should be on your resume because that's what stands out to us as recruiters. We have like systems in place or softwares in place that help us highlight those keywords that we posted on the job description. So when it pops up on your resume, that's how we're like, ding, 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 this is a good resume, this is a good profile. So when it comes to applying for jobs, I recommend everyone take their time and be intentional with the keywords that you use on the resume, because that's how you stand out. I know people who apply to 100 jobs, 200 jobs, and still don't get, an interview or the traction that they need in order to move forward, and it's because they don't take the time to be intentional with the keywords that they use. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Additional details of what should go on your resume. It should be nicely organized. Correct grammar is a huge red flag to you all. Grammar is everything, because it is the first impression of your resume. This is how you're showcasing yourself, your experience. So you want to make sure that the words, punctuation, grammar, spelling, and all of that is good to go. Sometimes recruiters get turned off if your punctuation and spelling isn't correct or up to par, because that's a reflection of how you showcase your work. Are you detail oriented? Is this how you're going to work on the job if things are not spelled correctly? After that, continue to use verbs or action words to describe what you've done. One page, like I mentioned, but I always recommend PDF versus Word documents when submitting a resume. The reason being is because if you submit a Word document or a Google document as your resume, sometimes the ATS system that you submit your application to will shift the entire format, and it looks crazy. It goes like into 2 pages, 3 pages, and it gets very distracting for us as recruiters to read it. So if you don't already have your resume in PDF format before you submit your next job application, I recommend you transition it over. And then, like I mentioned earlier, create multiple versions of your resume. That way you can raise the chances of you nailing the job. Something that I did when I was first on the job hunt after I graduated from UC Merced is my resume, I called it my closet resume, and it was really, really long. I included everything I did at UC Merced, clubs, organizations, research, job experience, and it was long and distracting. And I called it my closet resume because whenever it was time to apply to a new job, I would pick out articles of clothing or my experience, and I would make this new resume that'll be tailored towards the job that I'm looking forward to. I still have my closet resume. It's about 2.5 pages, but whenever I apply to jobs, I make sure that I take out the experience that's most relevant towards the job I'm applying for. And then lastly, if you do have like portfolios, websites, or anything that you've created, or anything within those lines, a LinkedIn account, your email, or anything like that, make sure you include the links to that on the actual resume. That way they can click around and see your work on the website or whatever it is that you created. Resume formatting is huge. Make sure your resume format is balanced and consistent. That way it's easy on the eye for the recruiter. Sometimes we get resumes that are very distracting. They may have lots of color on them, maybe a headshot or a selfie on it, and when we look at that, to us, in recruiting or in tech, that's not considered to be professional. But let's say you are pursuing a creative role in marketing, or you want to go into like music production or something along those lines, then those resumes could have headshots and stuff on them. But for the most part, keep it standard, keep it clean, and make sure it's a balanced format. So for example, if your dates are listed on your resume on the right-hand side for like the first couple of roles, make sure everything is aligned on the right-hand side. That way your recruiter isn't having to go back and forth on the resume. Make sure you guys bold, italicize, and underline things that you guys want to highlight, but don't overdo it to where it's looking like a whole bunch of bolded text on the resume. But overall, focus on your format because it's everything. So for example, this is a sample resume. When I say balance, you want to make sure that if you divide your piece of paper in 4s, that each corner looks balanced. Typically, what's most relevant to the job or whatever we look at first is on the top left-hand corner of the resume. So when you read English, for example, you read right to left, we start up here. So we start with your name, education, I always recommend to put at the top, relevant coursework and all that good stuff, and then your experience right after that. So whatever is most important, make sure you guys put that on the top left. If you put education at the bottom of your resume, I recommend that y'all move it to the top. That way, that's the first thing we see once we view the resume. So yeah, using an active voice, like I mentioned earlier, things like I designed this, I implemented that, I executed this, I drove, I planned. These are action words that highlight what it is that you did on the resume. So make sure that's listed kind of as the first word of the description of what it is you did. If you have any involvement or leadership in organizations, that should also be highlighted in your resume. I want you guys to focus on the impact of what you did. Otherwise, it's going to look like random words to us. So if you measure what it is you did, then it's easier for us to track. And then make your resume count. This is the one-page brand or sales pitch of yourself. Things to remember. I want you guys to remember that experience doesn't always mean you were paid for the job. So if you have experience volunteering somewhere, or you were a mentor, you were in a club, or anything like that, that is valid experience that can be listed on your resume. Sometimes when I work or hire recent grads, for example, they always hesitate or struggle, or they're not sure what to put on their resume because they're like, this wasn't my professional work experience. But the experience that you have is your experience. And so whatever skills you learned here will most likely be transferable to whatever it is you want to pursue next. So all experience is good experience. As I mentioned earlier, add keywords in your resume for electronic applicant searches. Recruiters use these electronic applicant searches, so make sure that those keywords on your resume align with what's listed on that job listing. And lastly, I always recommend to get your resume reviewed by multiple people, multiple times. I'm here as a resource for you all, so if you guys need a second opinion on your resume, whether it's today, another day in the future, feel free to reach out to me. If you're still an undergrad, go to your career center. I know there's different advisors there who can help review your resume, and professors too sometimes can support with that. But make sure you reach out to those in your network to ask for a second opinion or some help on what you should include. So yeah, that concludes the end of my resume building 101 presentation. I wanted to include my contact information. It's a little blurry for those who are in the audience, but I can share it with you guys when I'm done. That's my personal cell phone number. Y'all can text me, call me, let me know if you guys need anything. My email, and then if you guys are active on LinkedIn and want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. Feel free to go ahead and add me there. But does anyone have any questions? Was that good? Yeah? Okay, cool. Thank you all.
What about the size of the resume? So I remember that in the past we used to say that the resume has to be a single page. Is that still a restriction, or does it look like that flexibility?
Oh yes, that's a very good question. So when it comes to like the size of the resume, when it comes to like font and formation, single margin lines, 0.12 font, Times New Roman is what is advised. I think as you go higher in your career, the more senior you go, the more acceptable it is for a longer resume. So right now I recruit senior talent at Meta. A lot of the resumes I'm seeing are around 2 pages, but if you're earlier in your career or middle of your career, then the expectation is to prioritize your experience and then have that on 1 page. Yeah. And then I'm going to add.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the resume should include the contact information, schools, education. So it should be in order, which the order that, so the contact is the top, then the school, the education, usually should be from
Oh, good question. So the top of the resume should be your name. It should be bolded, it should be highlighted, they need to know who you are. Back is your contact information and location. Typically it goes, your phone number, your email address, and then where you're located. You don't have to put your precise address. I always advise to just put the city that you're located in. So if you're in Hayward, California, if you're on the East Coast, whatever city you're in, that's what you highlight. Back is your credentials. So any profession or your credentials, so any degrees that you have, any coursework that you've taken, any certifications that you have, that's what'll go next. And then the rest of your resume is open for your professional work experience. Back, if you want to add like community involvements or club involvements with Shabab, then that can go at the bottom.
Yeah. What's your opinion on like tech search? I know, for example, like Meta, they have like back end like what's your opinion on that, and like how important is that?
As far as my opinion on including it on your resume or pursuing those certifications? Both? Okay, so if you have that experience and you went through a certification course, put it on your resume. That's the experience that you have. If you're looking, for example, to get experience or go through a certification class for, like, let's say software engineering, and you think that's what's going to help you further your career at a company like Meta or Google or any of the tech companies, go for it, because that's the experience that we're looking for. Some roles do require higher education, whether it's a master's program, a PhD, or things of that nature. But for the most part, your bachelor's degree is more than enough. And then any additional coursework, boot camps, internships, externships, anything like that will help us make your resume stand out. That's a good question. Right here.
How do you see cover letters?
Cover letters are not as common anymore. I would say maybe like 5 years ago, it was like resume and cover letter, and most jobs would ask for both. But now I don't really read cover letters at all. Yeah, not that often. I don't know if you've noticed, like, on job postings, them asking for a cover letter, but it's not as common. It's the resume that stands out. Yeah, and it doesn't make or break the application. So we give candidates the option to submit a cover letter, but none of my candidates in the past year have submitted one, and I haven't read through them either. It's typically your concrete experience that stands out to us.
What about
Letters of rec, for us, we don't have an option to submit that, but I would say if it gives you an option to submit it, it'll make you stand out. So if you have it, go ahead and move forward with it. If you don't let that discourage you from submitting an application. Don't say, oh man, I don't have a letter of rec, I don't have a cover letter, let me not move forward. Just putting your resume in there will be more than enough. Yeah. Any other questions? Those are all really good questions. Okay, well, give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you all for coming to the Resume Building 101 workshop. This is one of many workshops that will be happening throughout the year. Next month, we'll have a workshop on LinkedIn. The month after, Interview 101, email etiquette, so on and so forth. So continue to come out to our professional development workshops. Bring your friends, bring your parents. It's not just for folks who are senior in their career, folks in undergrad. This is to help support everyone in the community the best I can. So thank you all for coming, and I will see you guys soon.